All right, I'm recording. All right. All right, I'm ready to confirm and go live. I hope. Oh, I am. Okay, yeah, I'm good.
Did you mute your mic? Our mic's muted or no?
Yeah, both of them.
Okay. So so we're live. You're just playing the. Coming to you live from the Death Star. It's the Movie Change Up podcast brought to you by Tristan and I. Completely messed up that intro because we had some behind the scenes problems. But yeah, it's our Disney Plus weekly review for September 11th, 2021. We're going to talk about what released on Disney Plus this week. If you've been watching our show, you kind of know what we're about. If you've never watched our show or listened to our podcast form of this show before, basically our target audience is kind of the general, just kind of general audience, the people that have Disney Plus, maybe because they wanted to watch a Marvel show like Loki, or maybe they wanted to watch Mandalorian or The Bad Batch, and now they have Disney Plus and they don't really know what they should be watching. So that's our job. We kind of watch stuff as it comes out each week and let you know what you're supposed to be watching. We're going to be talking some what if. We'll be talking some rumors that are coming out, maybe trailers that have dropped, and we'll be talking about Doogie. I don't have the name of the show in front of me, but Tristan, what's the name of that show?
I have it in front of me. I'm gonna pull it up right now. It is called Doogie Kamealoha. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. They pronounce it. I think it's Kamealoha
Yeah, that sounds about right.
because they call her both Kame and Aloha in the episode. Because her name is Kamealoha, so I believe it's Doctor
Yeah,
Kamala Doogie Kamealoha. It's a
yeah,
modernization of the Doogie Howser story.
yeah.
New direction, though. I'm interested to talk about it.
Yeah, we will talk about that later. But first, let's talk about Disney's What If, and that is What If Zombies, which basically the plot of the episode was essentially Hulk lands on Earth kind of right after Thor Ragnarok, or I guess right after the opening of Infinity War. And basically lets everyone know that Thanos is coming. And unfortunately, he finds out that the world is populated by zombies, including all of our most of our favorite heroes. And it kind of all started because when Hank Pym went to rescue Janet Van Dyne in the quantum realm, she took on some quantum virus that turned her into a zombie. And when he brought her out of the quantum realm, she brought the virus with her, and it kind of infected everyone and turned everyone into zombies. Tristan, what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, we mentioned last week that I was kind of excited for these Marvel Zombies episode because it's one that I was interested in because I'm familiar with the comics. It's one that I remembered reading back when I was in like like middle school or something when these are coming out. So I was looking forward to this. And overall, I was positive on it. I think it's a weak episode overall. There was some stuff that I liked. I thought there was some good action. There was some good comedy beats in the first half. I thought the first half was okay, but it kind of missed the tone a bit. But I will say that the second half picked up considerably for me. I think that the second half of the episode was essentially like a whole episode, and they didn't have the first half, or at least had that in like a different season or something. I think it would have been a lot better. But they juggled a lot of tones and a lot of different styles. But I thought it was a okay episode, one of the weaker ones, but still an alright episode.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm a lot lower on this episode than you are. To me, it just felt like all of the previous episodes have had like a clear direction and a clear idea, and the writers knew the story they wanted to tell with each episode. Whether it was Captain Carter and they wanted the more of like a feminism angle, and still kind of tell an alternate history of the first Avenger. And then with the Doctor Strange episode, they had the clear direction of like showing loss and like Doctor Strange, like a different side of him, and him how much he cares and how far he'll go for the people around him. And I'm blanking on what the second episode was. The second
I believe it
episode.
was the
Oh, it was.
T'Challa as Star-Lord
Oh, yeah.
episode.
And this one was, the second one was the T'Challa Star-Lord episode, which still was a clear direction of wanting to show that no matter how T'Challa was raised, he was still like the good, altruistic person. This episode was very much like zombies. Marvel Zombies is like the most popular what if version of Marvel. If we're doing a what if show, we have to do a zombies episode. And they really didn't have a clear story or direction with this episode, was how I felt. And it's perfectly summed up with the title is literally What If Zombies?
I do agree with
Question
you. I
mark,
think it feels pretty
exclamation
lazy.
point. And that's my whole problem. I feel like the intro of how we got zombies felt very lazy. I would have liked it more if it was like at some point the Hulk was looking for a cure of being the Hulk, and somehow he made zombies, and like it was about his choice and just something to explore a character. But instead we didn't really get any kind of character exploration, nothing. It was literally just like, there's zombies, and it's a pretty generic zombie apocalypse story told with characters we already know.
I
Like
felt that
it,
about the first half of the episode. I definitely agree with you on that. I think that it was very much just like, oh, here's zombies, and we feel obligated to do the Marvel Zombies arc, and we're just gonna. I think the tone especially was what was hard to get invested into, because as soon as I started taking any moment seriously, there'd be like a joke, and I'd be like, okay, what is the theme here? Like, who are we rooting for? What is like what are you trying to say with this episode? I think you have a good criticism there, where there wasn't like a central message of the episode, just kind of like, oh, here's the heroes doing cool zombie stuff, and
yeah.
they tried to give us a theme towards the end of the second half, but I definitely thought, especially the first half, was weak with it just kind of being like, I don't want to call it filler because this whole show is just kind of like one-off stories, but this one definitely felt like, okay, we could have spent that time doing something more interesting than this.
I feel like even telling this story from Vision's perspective, like spoiler, Vision is kind of the main villain of this episode because he's essentially trapping these characters to get them to essentially feed Scarlet Witch, who has become a zombie, and out of love, he's trying to keep Scarlet Witch relatively alive. And I almost feel like it would have been better from Vision's, if this whole episode was just Vision's perspective and seeing like his mentality, I guess, and seeing the more human side of Vision and exploring that. But like they have these dark moments, and then we get Paul Rudd's head in a jar, which is just like like, I mean, I don't want to call it stupid because I think it would be funny and interesting in a different episode, but this episode overall was slightly more serious, and then you just have goofy Ant-Man's head in a jar, and I'm just like, this doesn't fit at all.
Yeah, I didn't
I
expect
don't know.
this
I
to be
just
the
didn't
most
really.
kitty episode of the show so far. There was a lot of like real tone breaking humor, especially the Paul Rudd in the head humor. I was like, is this serious or is this like a farce?
Yeah, like even like a smaller scale story, just like Peter having to like Peter Parker, his aunt, like seeing Aunt May turn into a zombie, and that's the whole episode of him having to learn to like let go of his final parental figure of like, you could set it after Tony's death, and it's like, okay, he lost his parents, he's lost Uncle Ben, he's lost Tony, and now finally Aunt May, his last final parental figure, is turning into a zombie, and he's doing everything possible to keep her alive, to try to find a cure, and maybe he's doing all these things and slowly, like doing bad things, and eventually he has to realize there is no cure, and he just letting go. To me, would be like a much more interesting and better story than what we got.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems with this episode is that they felt obligated to be faithful to the Marvel Zombies plotline. I don't think they should be changing everything, but you're covering like multiple issues, like a full arc
Yeah,
of a story in like a 25 minutes, and it's
yeah,
like some of the stuff that would have were like tonal shifts are good through a long period of time. Like you can go from humor to dark when you have like multiple issues over an entire arc, and you can have like the time to develop the. Of course, it wasn't Vision and Scarlet Witch, but it was a similar concept of someone luring in superheroes to feed them to someone who was a zombie. Uh, they could have explored that more deeply, but they didn't have the time, and they could have explored the action of or like the hope of Wakanda. I think that was what they tried to go for in the second half, and why it kind of turned around a bit for me in the second half is they did try to give us a theme about hope and a theme about like looking forward to something in the distance in these really dark, unfaithful times when they have Wakanda as this like beacon to look to in the distance, and Hope sees Peter Parker as like this beacon of her own. He's like the one member of the Avengers who's like this young face who's able to remain hopeful and even in all this terror. And I think he inspires some change in her. So I think the second half of the episode for me is a lot more what I wanted it to be. Like what are these characters doing in this zombie apocalypse? How do they react? How are they changed by this? And look how weird it is to see Hope Van Dyne and Peter Parker and Black Panther all in the train together, and characters you never otherwise would see together exploring a theme that otherwise would never explore. I think that's kind of what If is at its best. So I kind of just wish there was more of that and less of Paul Rudd in a jar and okay zombie action and Mark Ruffalo getting paid a lot of money to have like really bad one-liners that are tone killers. Yeah, I think it was a mixed episode for me. Definitely the weakest so far of this show.
I will say probably the best ending though of any of the episodes. Like the last 10 seconds was the best last 10 seconds of any of the episodes of like last week's episode with Doctor Strange and the universe ending was really good, but this idea of like all the hope and everything, we have the Mind Stone, we're going to Wakanda, hopefully there's a cure, and you just see zombie Thanos with the gauntlet basically waiting for them, and you're like it's I'm trying to remember it's one-legged Black Panther, Peter Parker, and Ant-Man head in a jar against Thanos. Like they have no shot. Like you know what's gonna happen. You don't need to see it. That Thanos is just gonna destroy them.
I don't want to keep roasting the episode entirely, so I want to talk about a couple of the things that at least I personally thought were pretty good.
Hey, I just gave a positive. Okay, I said
Yeah,
the ending was really
the
good.
ending was really good. I thought a lot of the second part was really good. I thought that the Vision twist of this sort of being like Vision's version of the WandaVision reality. He's trapped in this reality where he can't let go of Wanda, and he's doing things that he knows are morally wrong because he wants to preserve the one that he loves. So I think it's kind of interesting that all these Disney Plus shows have like some of these shared moments and shared themes together. But I also thought some of the action was kind of cool. I thought Hulk versus Scarlet Witch was a cool action scene, especially in this like huge crowd of zombies. It added a cool element to the action. I thought there was some good action there. I thought a lot of the action that was like zombies versus Avengers was pretty bad. But like there were a couple of set pieces I thought were pretty cool. I thought Bucky versus Cap was all right. But I do want to emphasize, like, if you think this premise is interesting, you're like, oh, I like the idea of these zombified superheroes who have some, like, remnants of who they are before, and now we have our heroes that we normally know who are scattered in this reality, don't know how to fix it. Like, read the comics. They're on Marvel Unlimited. You can get that for I don't know how much a month, and you can read that whole arc online. And there's a bunch of spin-offs and sequels and stuff, so if you like it, there's a whole bunch to explore that's a lot better than this, and this is just kind of like a disappointing way to adapt that in a way, but there were some highlights and some good action scenes I wanted to point out.
Yeah, this is one of those things that I would have preferred it more if they were like, "Hey, we're gonna do 2 episodes on this," or or like our season finale. I mean, and part of my problem too is it felt like they're still weaving, but even though it's an anthology, the episodes, especially with the Watcher, are weaving a narrative. And like over the past few episodes, the Watcher has become more and more involved. And this felt like a regression where he wasn't as involved in this one really as much. Where maybe if this was episode 2, I wouldn't be as low on it. But part of me feels like if there is a narrative that we're building and there is, something going on with the Watcher and he is going to play a part later on, that this episode's going to stick out even more of like the weird episode that really didn't line up with everything else.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one that may become better on my list if they do come back and do a sequel in season 2, and it kind of like makes this a little bit more enjoyable. Like some of the stuff that didn't work for me becomes a bit more better and a bit more interesting in the second season. But as of right now, it's pretty weak. But yeah, not the best of the what ifs.
But I will say we did learn one thing: IMDb is a bunch of liars.
I have a couple cool points though, things I want to point out now that you mentioned that. Saying IMDb is a bunch of lies. I thought that was a nice final touch. We might see Chadwick Boseman again as Star-Lord in the finale, but I think it was a nice moment of him saying, like, in my culture, death isn't the end. The people that we love live on as long as you like remember them. And it's kind of touching to see to hear Chadwick Boseman delivering that line, especially as Black Panther, as someone that's going to live on as an icon for decades and decades after his death. And I also wanted to mention a cool little fact that this is the first time we've heard the name Uncle Ben mentioned in the MCU.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I forgot about that. Yep.
I kind of thought when they said it, I thought, hey, I don't know if they've actually said the words Uncle Ben. Like they've mentioned your uncle as this like a Schrodinger's figure out there that we don't really know much about, but now we know at least his name's Uncle Ben. He's gonna be Tobey Maguire in the movie. Wait and see.
I was about to say that's still my theory. It's just basically if you've been following internet rumors and news, it's essentially been confirmed that Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are going to in fact be in Spider-Man No Way Home, and I'm still going with that fan like theory that Tom Holland's Spider-Man is going to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man remove his mask and basically call him Uncle Ben, because essentially Uncle Ben in his universe look like Tobey Maguire.
We'll see. I'm not placing my bets on that one, Joe, but I'd be thinking of you in the theater if that happened.
All right. You ready to move on to our next topic?
I'm ready to move on. What do we got, Joe?
I think we're going to be talking about Lego Star Wars, whatever they called it.
They're Halloween tales. I don't remember what Spooky Jedi tales.
Yeah. Yeah, it should say on our, what's our background say on the...
It says Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. That's not interesting as anything that we were just saying. Terrifying Tales.
Yeah, Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. Yeah, obviously the episode hasn't dropped. It's going to drop October 1st, but they did release a trailer. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't a big fan of the holiday special Lego one that they dropped on Disney+. But this actually looks fun, looks interesting. It basically looks like it's going to be a few stories that talk about dark side characters, and I'm kind of into it. We saw a Darth Maul one, we saw potentially a Vader one, we see kind of a what if story with Luke of what if Luke joined the Empire and met up with Vader earlier on. And then the one that intrigues me the most is a character that they've been exploring a bit in the comics, and I think a character that we could potentially see in live action, maybe the Acolyte or something else, and that is the character of Ren, the original Knight of Ren, who is going to be voiced by a legendary actor who has appeared in such great classic movies like Pump Up the Volume, and he has also appeared in the television show Mr. Robot, and that is Christian Slater is coming in to voice Ren in the Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales. Tristan, what was your thoughts on this trailer?
I don't want to sound like I'm all positive on the episode here, because I did end up actually liking the Star Wars Lego Holiday Special a little bit. It wasn't necessarily great, but I had a good time with it, and there was a lot of good jokes that I remember liking a lot. So when they said they're going to be doing a Halloween special, I was definitely excited. I'm a big horror movie fan, and of course I'm a big Star Wars fan, so you bring those two things together. Sounds like a great time to me, and this trailer definitely seems like a great time to me. It seems like just about the same as the holiday special was, the Lego one. So if you were a fan of that one and you're a fan of just kind of like these fluffy, fun, obviously not canon, just like adventures throughout the Star Wars galaxy with characters you know and in these fun Lego forms, especially if you played like the Lego video games and you have kind of like a nostalgia for that kind of humor. It's a lot of the same humor between the games and these specials. So I definitely would think this could be a fun one to curl up with your family and watch it on Halloween month coming up. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not canon, but it's like tangentially canon, and it kind of lets you into a window in what the Lucasfilm like thinks of canon, especially like moving forward, like them including a character like Ren as potentially a prominent character in one of the stories, kind of lets you know that hey, this might be a character that we see in something else. Like maybe they are doing, something like Jedi Academy as an animated show showing like the adventures of Luke and Kylo, and maybe we'll see Ren pop up in there or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm interested to see it. It could be the same way as the holiday special where I watch it and like 15 minutes in, I'm like, I could understand why people are into this, but it's just not for me, and I just turned it off.
Yeah, they're just. I'm expecting it to be about the same quality as that, or it's like a passively fun time for me to watch when I'm like hanging out drinking on some night before Halloween and I have nothing else to watch. But yeah, it'll be. I'm sure if you have young kids, this is definitely gonna work for the young kids. But I don't imagine if you're like an actual, I want to follow the plot of Star Wars person that this is gonna be an essential watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm in the middle of my Star Wars chronological rewatch. I actually paused an episode of the Clone Wars. Right to start this episode. I'm actually watching the episode The Mandalore Plot right now.
Good
Um,
episode.
yeah, and when I do my and no way is the holiday special part of this rewatch. And if I ever do this again, in a few years, which will take a whole lot longer because we'll have that many more shows part of it, I'm gonna assume the Terrifying Tales Halloween special not gonna be a part of it either. That's not a knock on it. It's just not really canon, so it's not no real reason to. But yeah. I'm definitely gonna check it out, though. I can't promise that I'll finish it, but
This is equally canon to the canon comic book.
I don't know about that. You ready to move on to our next topic, or you got more to
I
say
got one
about
little
this?
tiny thing to say, not this Halloween,
Okay.
but I think next
Oh, I got one.
Halloween they're going to be doing a Marvel Halloween special, which sounds interesting. And I imagine
Oh yeah.
the rumors have been going around that Marvel is going to have this kind of like sideshow of horror characters, between Moon Knight and Blade and a lot of those that kind of realm of characters. I think would be an interesting way to have these two kind of this new era of Marvel, especially on Disney Plus. I would be interested to see how a Marvel Halloween special could be.
Are we sure it's not this
I think it might be
Halloween?
this Halloween.
I'm gonna look it up.
I was hearing there was like a wolf man or something, some kind of like wolf character I was not familiar with was going to be involved.
I'm looking it up.
But I'm all for Halloween specials, and I think Marvel, especially in these Disney Plus shows, has the potential to really break out of their tone and do something that looks and feels different than what they've been doing. Especially so many of the movies have to kind of feel thematically together, if not tonally together, and very, very much
Yeah.
like part of the same puzzle. And this, I
Yeah,
hope, cannot feel like that.
I've heard about that Halloween special too, but right now the only thing I can find is the overall of the Guardians of the Galaxy ride at Disney World. So I'm not sure.
Interesting. I heard rumors about it, and I was assuming 2022 because it was so early, But
That's probably what it is, and they haven't officially released anything, and that's why I can't find anything. Oh, and one thing I will say is the narrator of the episode at first I thought was Palpatine, but then I watched the trailer and something else with subtitles, and it's actually, I believe the character's name is Van A, who is the character in Rogue One that approaches Vader's in the back to tank.
interesting. What a pull. That's
Yeah,
kind of the fun with these weird specials is
yeah,
sometimes they have a chance to pull just like random things out of thin
yeah,
air.
yeah. But yeah, that's the first time I watched the trailer, I'm just like, oh, that's Palpatine, because it's Lego, so you're not really able to show that many details in the character, and it's this like white male hooded figure with robes. So why would you assume it was anyone other than Palpatine? But there you go. It's Van A from Rogue One. All
What do we
right.
got up next, Joe?
Next, we got the show, the new Disney Plus show, Doogie Kamealoha M.D., and we're going to be talking specifically about the episode that dropped, the pilot episode, which I believe is called Aloha hyphen the First Ones.
That sounds like it. I think it's Aloha, the hello one, something like that.
The hello ones. There we go.
Is
Aloha, the hello ones. We're a super prepared show, if you couldn't tell. Uh, I'll be honest. Watched the episode today, and I texted Tristan. I have a review that's going to be shocking. To be honest, when I fired this episode up, I was ready to not give a single shit about this episode, this show in general. The episode ended, and I'll be honest, I liked it a lot more than I did. I think it might be my favorite. So, of the Disney Plus pilots I've seen, it's probably my favorite that isn't a Marvel or Star Wars show. And that's coming from someone who actually enjoyed Turner and Hooch. I haven't watched the last few episodes, I'll be honest, but this episode really connected with me. So, basic plot, obviously, it's a reboot of Doogie Howser. But one of the things I really liked is the show Doogie Howser exists within this show, and that's how she gets the name, or how she gets the nickname Doogie, is because it's like, oh, she's like, because Doogie Kamealoha M.D. is just like Doogie Howser, a teenage doctor who was super smart and passed medical school while she was still a teenager. And her doctors gave her the nickname Doogie, just like Neil Patrick Harris's character on his show Doogie Howser. And basically, has a homecoming or some kind of school dance, and she's also dealing with her patient that is in need of an heart transplant. And she's just dealing with, she hasn't had her first kiss yet, she hasn't had her first dance yet, and so she's going to the dance with this boy. And she's taught in the show, there's moments where it's super like telegraphed of what's going to happen, and watching it I'm like, okay, this is going to happen, then this is going to happen. But yeah, she's on the way to the dance, and she basically, there's this party after the dance that she wants to go to, but her mom's like, oh, you can't go because you're a doctor and you got to do doctor things, and I'll give you time, because her mom is also her boss. I'll give you the time to go to the dance, but you can't go to the party afterwards. But then she kind of decides that she's going to go to the party anyways. And she's talking with this older patient that needs the heart transplant, and she's befriended him. And he says to her, and she's basically like, hey, you've been approved for the heart transplant. And he asks, when's it going to be? She's like, I don't know. Could be tonight, could be tomorrow, could be in a week. And he's basically like, oh, well, when I get my heart transplant, will you be there? And she says, yeah, I'll be there. And he's like, you promise? And she's like, I promise. I'm immediately like, well, he's going to get the heart transplant right after the end of the dance. And of course, cut to the dance. She's dancing with her date. She's about to have her first. They're leaning in for the kiss, and out loud, I said, and her pager goes off in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll tell you right now, I nailed it. Right after I said 1, the vibrating sound of her pager went off when their lips were millimeters apart. And she's like, oh, I have to go. And spoiler alert, patient ended up dying before he got the transplant. But the one thing I will say why I connected with this episode so much is the patient was a big Creedence Clearwater Revival fan, and like that was kind of their connection. Of he gave her a CD and he was listening to him all the time, and obviously he had the heart problems. My favorite band of all time is Creedence Clearwater Revival. They're amazing. All their songs sound the same, but who cares, because it's the greatest songs of all time. And like I have my medical conditions too, especially related to my heart, so I connected with that patient. And then when he didn't make it, I'll be honest, I started to tear up a little bit. And then at the end, she starts her YouTube channel where she narrates kind of into it, just like Doogie Howser, kind of the Neil Patrick Harris show, typed into his computer and like did his diary at the end of every episode, kind of thing. So they're connecting that way. But as far as a reboot of Doogie Howser goes, I really liked it. Sorry, I rambled for like a long time there, but I just like the episode so much more than I expected. Maybe now that I have a bar of what I expect it to be, I'll go into next episode and be like, I mean, technically, I guess it's the same quality as the previous episode, but I'm just not blown away like I was before because I actually have a little bit higher of a bar, so I won't care as much. But as far as we go right now, I liked it.
Yeah, when you gave me that text and said you have a shocking review, I was thinking, oh, I guess Joe like really liked Cruella or something. He's gonna come out with some like hot takes on Cruella that it was so good, and I had no interest. I mean, I was interested in watching this, but I had no expectations for what it was in terms of quality. I thought it was gonna be just about as good as like some of these other like not so great passable Disney Plus shows where you watch them. We're like, yeah, it's good if you got kids, or it's good if you have nothing else to do on the weekend. But I thought this was actually really, really good. I thought this was by a mile the best show we've covered on here, not including probably the couple of Marvel shows that I've liked. But this is definitely up there. Literally, is like one of the best shows I've seen on Disney Plus. I thought, at least from one episode, I'm really, really impressed by it, and it's not gonna blow you away. Like if it's still gonna be a teen drama. It's still gonna have a lot of like the if you've watched like those independent woman goes to a small town kind of dramas where it's like, oh, she's the small town doctor and she asked like the patient of the week that teaches her about their problem that she wants to think about that week, and there's like the town event of that week that also like correlates with the patient of the week, and it's probably gonna have that same kind of like the beats to it. But I thought they did this really, really well, and they got me with a couple of the twists. Like I of course knew she was gonna get paged right at the worst moment possible, but I wasn't expecting the death scene at the end, and I also got kind of emotional. I was tearing up at the end, and I wasn't expecting to, and I was super really really impressed by this. I thought the lead actress was very charming. Peyton Elizabeth Lee is her name. I thought she was a really interesting actress. I'd never seen anyone on the show before in anything, but I thought they did a great job
Wait,
casting people who are Hawaiian in Hawaiian
you've
roles.
seen one of them before.
I have.
Yeah, one of the doctors, like the not I don't
Oh, of
want to say the
course.
main
I've seen.
doctor.
I
He's
was.
in Shang-Chi and he's in Crazy Rich Asians, and then he's also in Young Rock. And because of this show, he's become like one of my favorite comedic. Like it wasn't solely, but he was like I watched him in this, and I'm like, you know what? I love that guy in Crazy Rich Asians. I loved him in Young Rock. He was great in his like one or two scenes in Shang-Chi, and he's kind of showing a little bit more dramatic range because he didn't have as many comedic lines. It was somewhat more dramatic. I'm like, I love this guy.
You know
I
what?
want him in every show.
I was thinking more of the main characters, but you're right. I had seen that guy in a lot of stuff. He was hilarious in this. I thought he was really his comedic timing was great, and he delivered some of the dry lines really well. I liked when he went to this patient who was in for what he didn't necessarily know the full extent of his heart problems. He was saying, "Oh, I'm having some heart problems. I gotta come in," and they were going to give him an update on what the situation is, and he essentially walks in there and says, all right, well, you ready for a nice heart transplant? We're going to give you a new heart. And just kind of like drops on him that he's getting a heart transplant in this really like casual way. And the guy's like completely thrown for it. And I think, yeah, that actor delivered that so well in a way that definitely could have not landed a way that could have come off as like he's just being cold and heartless or that he doesn't care. And I think he balanced like he actually does care, but he has this kind of like aloof attitude to life also.
Yeah.
He's great in this show.
And just to shout him out, the actress name I believe is Ronnie Chang, Chieng. That's how I would pronounce that, but I don't know. I'm gonna go with Ronnie Chang.
I can't wait
Uh,
to cover more of this show. I'm really
and
into
then
this first pilot, so I definitely be into covering the second episode at least.
oh yeah, we can definitely cover it. And the lead actress Peyton Elizabeth Lee, kind of got her big start on the show Andy Mack on Disney Channel, which was a bit after our time of watching the Disney Channel, but I know it kind of got popular because it was basically the first Disney Channel show to talk about like LGBTQ stuff. So, and the director Jake Kasdan, who directed this episode, is probably most known for directing Jumanji, uh, whatever the new
Interesting, because it did look a lot like that movie. It was very. It's
yeah the
like going to
new
be very
Jumanji.
well lit. It's very bright. The same way you'd expect from those kind of like Disney shows, but it wasn't too bright. I was kind of. I mean, that's something that I nitpick, I guess, when I watch Disney shows. Is they're always just way too overlit, and there's like no shadow or depth to the image at all. And this actually looked pretty good. I'm curious to see, like, I don't know if he directs the whole season or what, for how the quality is going to be once they drop to like a TV director. If it's going to be a little bit of a drop in quality or not.
And one thing I'm curious about that's not so much this show related, but is Hawaii offering like a tax break for shows to film there? Because I've just noticed over the last like 3 or 4 years, there's been so many like Hawaiian set shows. You have this show is set in Hawaii. They're now dropping NCIS Hawaii. Um, Basically, half the CBS shows are now Hawaii because you have um, Magnum PI, which was always Hawaii, but still it's another Hawaii show. Um, it just seems like I've been seeing more and more, especially like network television shows popping up being like, oh, we're set in Hawaii.
I think it's interesting, and it's a nice way to get away from the typical like, oh, Los Angeles, New York, locations. Like it seems like every time we get these shows, it's some kind of like obscure small town somewhere. But this is like a unique. I mean, at least you're saying it's not unique, I guess. But at least
Yeah.
from my perspective, it feels unique for the genre of this kind of like small town independent girl genre. I don't know if that's the genre, but it's something that I like a lot. There's a lot of like
Yeah.
little niche shows on Netflix that are like, oh, the girl moves to this snow cabin in the woods, and she's like the town doctor that does like horse doctor transplants, and she's like the love interest of the ski captain, and that's the kind of stuff I like to watch, especially once we get to like the holiday season. So this feels like it'll be a nice comfort watch while still having some heart to it. I think if you like Scrubs, this might be something you'd be into. It's a lot more family oriented than
Yeah.
Scrubs, but it has similar format and similar characters to Scrubs.
Yeah, if you liked The Good Doctor, I believe on CBS, you probably like that show because that's like a more serious type Doogie Howser, where this is more goes for like the comedic family type thing. One of the things though I had a problem with in like the opening scene where I was like already kind of on my heels, not sure about the episode, was she goes to the cops and like um because there's like a bike accident or something, and these cops are looking at this wounded person, and she runs up and like tries to help, and like they're not really listening. I At first I thought this actress was like 25, 26, because I'll be honest, she looks like 20, she looks to be about 25 years old. And so when they're like, "Oh, like who are you, kid? Get away." I'm like, she's like 25 here. But then I looked it up and the actress is actually 17, but still there were
Oh,
moments where it like kind of takes me out cuz she looks like 20, she looks to be in her mid 20s. But then again, there's moments where in the more emotional moments, if they did get an actress that did look like 14, 15, 16 years old, that I just don't know if it would necessarily be believable. So I think they made the right choice in casting. It
yeah, I
was
think it's
just
a
in that
really
first moment with the cops and her, I'm like, they're overreacting. Like they're selling this too hard as a show of like she's young and all that.
mm-hmm.
But it worked later on.
Yeah, I think it's a strong casting choice. When they tell me it's a reboot of Doogie Howser, I think, oh, it's going to be like a kid in the operating room. It's going to look ridiculous. But she has just enough of that confidence that you could see that she'd be
Yeah.
someone who'd excel in school and really be able to have that confidence to pursue this career. But she also has that like Olivia Rodrigo charm, where she's like has that level of innocence, and she has like this level of naivete, similar to Olivia Rodrigo's character in High School Musical. So I think if you're a fan of that series, you'd like this as well. A lot of cool crossover. There was even a High School Musical song in this episode, so there's
Yeah.
some crossover there.
Oh yeah, I forgot with the TikTok. And yeah, I will say setting this in a world where the show Doogie Howser exists, and that's how, like, I know I brought it up before, but that's how she gets her nickname, is like, I think the smartest decision they could have made as far as a Doogie Howser reboot. Like, I think trying to make her like Doogie Howser's daughter or anything like that, or now you bring Neil Patrick Harris back and now he's an adult doctor, but now there's like this young kid that he has to mentor. Anything related to that, I think was the wrong move. Just making it completely separate is the best thing they could have done.
Yeah, that Neil Patrick Harris like snarky relationship with the young doctor. As soon as he said that, I could see like the trailer in my head, and I was like, that looks awful. And
But
this
I will
this
I would
is has a lot of good heart to it, so I'm happy they did this, not that.
yeah, I think it would be interesting though to bring Neil Patrick Harris in an episode as himself. Like maybe he gets injured somehow and finds himself in the hospital. And I feel like you could then have those jokes of like he's being treated by a kid doctor and he thinks like there's a prank being played on him or something.
I think that's a great way to do it. Bring him in as a patient. That would be
Yeah,
really funny because we do know he exists in the world out there. So
yeah,
Neil Patrick Harris can't just show up as the character; he has to show up as Neil Patrick Harris.
yeah. I think that would be a fun way to go. I
That,
think
or we do a High School Musical esque dream sequence. Maybe she hits her head. She has some kind of way. She's in the hospital. She's hospitalized, and she has a dream sequence where she's hanging out with Doogie himself.
yeah, perfect. See, we should be Hollywood writers.
Come on, Disney. We're right here giving you the ideas. We're praising your surprisingly great Doogie Howser reboot that came out of nowhere that I'm gonna be telling all my friends to watch.
Yeah.
I defended your What If episode against the Tyrant Joe. Come hire me.
Yep.
Or hire
I
Joe.
don't know.
Hire one of us.
Hire both of us.
Or both
Why?
of
Why
us.
does this have to be either or
Look,
situation?
it's a
It's like
dog
this.
eat dog world in Hollywood, Joe.
Why can't it be like that taco commercial with the girls where her family's saying soft shell or hard shell, and she's just, why not both?
I like that. We can both do
That
it. We can
that
show
little
run.
girl is my spirit animal. Why not both?
I like it. We can both. Disney, come on, hire us both. We'll share the
Yep.
salary. We'll figure it out.
Yep. All right, you ready to move on to our next topic?
Yeah. What's the next topic, Joe?
Our next topic is one that might be another surprising review, and that's Cruella.
Cruella. I watched this a couple of times. I saw this in theaters, so I have a bit of a running thoughts on it. But Joe, you're more fresh on it, so I'm
Yeah, I've
curious
seen
what
it
you thought.
once. It dropped on Disney Plus last week. We were originally going to review it last week, but then we decided, screw it, let's review Shang-Chi instead and push Cruella. I'll be honest, I'm not. I think the reviews were mostly like mixed to negative. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, I was around there.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I really liked it. Maybe partially, again, the bar was set low because I knew the reviews were mixed to negative, so it didn't have a high bar to clear. To me, it cleared it. I think there were too many needle drops potentially of
There were
just like
so many.
popular songs that didn't exactly fit. But outside of that, I thought Emma Stone's performance was great. I thought the villain was great. The twist at the end was ruined for me because there was a point in time where I was like, I don't care about this movie, and I knew someone that saw it, and they were telling me the plot of it.
Is that me?
No, it wasn't me. I mean, it might you might I might have already known the plot, and then you talked about it again. But I think if I had went in fresh, I would have liked it more. But even when I knew the plot twist coming, I was fine with it. I thought her two little sidekicks, Jasper and Horace, were great. The dog thing that everyone memed at the beginning makes a lot more sense when you actually watch the movie of like they were controlled. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked the idea that they didn't try to make Cruella. I mean, they made her slightly sympathetic. They gave her like a slightly more understanding of why, but that's what I like more of. Like, this is a more why she's evil and not, oh, she's not evil. She's just misunderstood or something like that. It's like, no, she's still a crazy evil person. And this is why it's a lot darker of a movie than I would have expected for like a Disney live action reboot compared to their other live action kind of reboots of their animated movies. But I think I mean, and it's, if on paper, I don't think I wouldn't have thought the like creation of her name, Cruella Deville, would have worked. But I think it did work how they presented it. Of like, she was born Estella, and then she adopts the name Cruella because it was kind of like this nickname she gave herself as a kid. And then, the whole DeVille thing comes from the car, but that makes sense because her car in the animated movie was a DeVille, so it just like, oh, she's like, oh, my name's Cruella. Oh, that's good for a last name for me. So I liked it. What are your thoughts on it here? You might have reviewed it at some point, but well, I don't
I
remember.
don't remember if it did or not, but I want to echo your thoughts once again. I really like this a lot. This is in my top 10 of the year so far for 2021. I had a great time with this. I thought it was a really really fun, just blast of camp and energy. And I Disney's done so many of these reboots and these live action adaptation type things, and none of them have really worked for me. Like, I think some of them are okay. A few of them are like not great, but they've never been anything that had any real strong feelings for me either way. And this one, it hit really hard for me. I think Emma Stone is fantastic in it. It's one of her best performances. I think she just really gives into the role and really embraces kind of the tone of the whole thing.
The speech towards the end where she's talking, because her mom uh dies, and she kind of goes to this fountain, and her fountain is kind of like her mom's grave, at least like in her mind. Like, when she wants to go talk to her mom, essentially she goes to this fountain, and there's this monologue at the end where she's essentially talking to her mom at the fountain that is like borderline Oscar worthy, which I would not expect from, like, if you had told me, and I mean, granted, it is Emma Stone and she's like one of the greatest actresses of her generation, but if you had told me, oh, she's gonna give like an Oscar worthy monologue in this movie, I would be like, all right, you need to relax a little bit. But there is, I would say, a borderline Oscar worthy monologue
Don't
in the end of this movie.
don't underplay the other Emma though. She's playing against Emma Thompson, and also
Yeah.
like just high
Professor
caliber
Trelawney,
class actress, and she's also someone that is really embracing the tone. And if you've seen like The Devil Wears Prada, she's really capturing like that energy of that character in that movie. Meryl Streep's character in that movie. She has that kind of ferocity and that just she's just out to conquer the fashion world, and she's gonna take down anybody in her way to be the best at fashion. And I thought it was a great just kind of dive into this really big world. And of course, because it's a fashion movie, I also want to mention the costume design. I thought was beautiful.
Oh yeah,
There's this
like
whole sequence where Cruella is trying to like one up Emma Thompson's character by showing her all of these. There's like a montage of gorgeous dresses and her kind of flamboyantly revealing them across the city. And I thought that was a great sequence. And the dresses looked fantastic and incredible. There's so much color and it was really vibrant too. I think the digital sometimes was mucky in the darks, but I think it captured the brights and the vibrant colors really well. What were you gonna mention about the costumes or that kind of stuff?
I was gonna say with the costumes, like if the costumes don't work, like I think this movie fails because I mean that is the movie. Like this movie is centered around the world of fashion, and I also think they captured like the '70s English punk vibe perfectly. I don't really know what else I would have done to adapt that, and I think the clothes and the fashion and everything fits that. And I will add, apparently, to make a live action 101 Dalmatians movie, you need to cast someone from Harry Potter because they had Emma Thompson, who was Professor Trelawney, and then Horace in the original live action one with Glenn Close was Ronald Weasley's dad. So just got to keep that.
Keep that Harry Potter blood going,
Yeah.
especially, you know,
Yep.
everything's gotta connect.
Yep.
Except
Maybe
Britain's
in like
got like four actors, and they've all been either Doctor Who or in Harry Potter.
maybe in like 30 years we'll get another 101 Dalmatians adaptation with Emma Watson as Cruella Deville.
Wow, that would be such a. Could you imagine? That would be so much fun.
Yeah, I'd watch it.
I like this a lot. I right after I watched it for the first time, I went and rewatched 101 Dalmatians. I hadn't seen that since I was probably a little kid, and it is fun. It doesn't. It's you're not like getting and here's Cruella going up to like the moment she starts 101 Dalmatians. There's not like a Rogue One style ending where she's walking from one movie to the other. It feels like a different character in a different kind of world, and they weren't too concerned with like, oh, here's this character from the 101 Dalmatians, and here's this plot line that directly brings into the storyline, and here's this that directly connects up this. Like there's cameos and there's stuff like that, but
Yeah,
I didn't
you
feel
get
like I was bogged down with connective tissue.
yeah you get Roger and Anita, but I don't even know if they meet at all in this movie.
Yeah, because I was super unfamiliar with the original movie. I'd seen it when I was like
Yeah.
very young, and so I was wondering if I'd be lost watching this, and I was not at all lost. I'm sure there was references and jokes that I missed, but yeah, I followed the plot perfectly.
Again, I mean, I haven't watched the movie. I just remember. So I watched the live action one a lot. I didn't really watch the animated one so much. The one with oh my god, I'm blanking
Glenn
on his name.
Close.
Yeah, Glenn Close. But I was trying to think of the guy that plays Roger's name. But yeah, so I watched that one a lot as a kid. So I knew the name Roger and Anita, and when they popped, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And but then I don't even think they meet. But yeah, there didn't seem to be like that many references. But one of the things I kind of hope they do moving forward with these adaptations is because the ones that seem to be like kind of direct, just copies of the original, don't really work so much. I think Jungle Book is far and away the best one. Beauty and the
For
Beast
sure.
was mediocre. I haven't seen Mulan. The Lion King was actively just not good. It just had zero emotion. It felt like the Gus Van Sant Psycho remake of like I don't know how you do a shot for shot remake of a movie and it's somehow like not it's somehow like way worse. But yeah,
I thought
the
Cinderella was pretty good.
okay, I haven't seen Cinderella either. So I haven't seen Cinderella and I haven't seen Mulan, but the ones I have seen that were 1-to-1. But there was a line in The Lion King, I've said this over and over and over and it'll always be true, of the story they should have done is there's a scene in the live action one where Mufasa and Scar are talking and Mufasa says like, "Oh, I beat you last time," and Scar says like, "Oh, I won't let that happen again." Why didn't they just make that movie? I want to see the like original fight between Scar and Mufasa, like years before Simba was ever born. Maybe we see how Scar got his scar. You still do it in that live action way, and I think you make just as much money, and you can tell an original story, and you don't have to be beholden to that you could do like do a remix essentially of I Just Can't Wait to Be King, but it's like a duet between Scar and Mufasa of how they both want to be king, and it could be you can kind of revamp some of the old songs, make some new songs, or don't even make it a musical at all. But I think that's the way to go. Like take a story or take a character from these animated movies and tell a new story with them instead of just copying the movie before. Like Little Mermaid, I know they're doing that. I don't want to see just a direct copy. Like give me, like some, because I know isn't it canon that King Triton and Ursula are brother and sister? Like give me the story about them when they were like younger or something. I know I just made that same argument for Scar and Mufasa, but I'd rather see that than just like, oh, this is exactly the same as the animated one, but now it's just live action.
Yeah, this movie did pretty well in the box office too, enough to greenlight a sequel. So I'm really excited to see what they do for the
Yeah.
sequel, and I hope they. I'm sure they'll bring back uh, most of the cast to replace a lot of the roles. So it'll be fun to see all them back again and how they are able to adapt into the sequel, where Cruella is kind of like at the top of the game, you'd assume, and being more of like the character we know from the original movie.
Mm.
So
Yep.
I'm really excited to see more of that, and I definitely recommend Cruella. It's one of those ones that I think slipped under the radar a bit of 2021 movies. Of course, it's a Disney movie, so it would never really went under the radar. But I think it was one that people kind of shoved away as like, oh, another one of those Disney live action, like Maleficent kind of movies that's going to be just like mediocre at best. And I hope people give it a chance now that it's on Disney Plus for free.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have watched it if it wasn't free.
Yeah, I saw it in theaters, and I think I saw it one more time after that, and I debated for a while to buy it $30 and watch it on Disney Plus because I liked it that much, but I'm glad I waited out because I wouldn't have paid $30 for it, but I'm glad that I watched it when I did. It was fun to see it in the theater too.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a fun movie in the theater. All right. I know we don't have any more topics listed on our screen, but I do. Two things I want to go over with first with is one, we have release dates for our next 3 Star Wars movies.
Oh,
If you want
interesting. Give me those, Joe.
to. There's more here, but I think the Marvel ones are more like well known. So Rogue Squadron, which is the Patty Jenkins fighter pilot X-wing movie, has a release date of December 22nd, 2023. So we're a little over 2 years out from that.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Closer than it feels.
And then our next is I'm trying to see. It should be our next one is going to be December 19th, 2025. And then our third one is December 17th, 2027. So basically, uh, every other year for the until through 2025, which I imagine is they'll at least stick to that of every other year. If we don't go back to if these 3 hit, or if even Rogue Squadron hits, I could see them being like, okay, let's greenlight one for 2026.
Yeah, I think it's good to start slow a little bit and get people's feet wet again with Star Wars, especially in the movie department. I think there's going to be a bit of a winning back to do because
Yeah.
the fans are watching Mandalorian, the fans are watching Bad Batch, but I don't think the general movie audience has been necessarily keeping up
I
with
don't
that.
know.
Maybe Mandalorian because Mandalorian's
I,
been
I
really
think
popular.
I don't think so much Bad Batch, but I do think overall I do think a lot of these shows are going to win people back. Like, if 2023 comes, the Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron 2023 movie comes, and at that point we have Mandalorian season 3 or 4 already out, and fans are loving that. We have Andor comes out, and potentially, like all these shows, Andor, Ahsoka, Book of Boba Fett, Kenobi, all these shows are out, and fans are loving them. I think for the most part, people will forget that they didn't really care so much for episode 9.
Yeah, I think we've already gotten to that point, and it's going to be exciting to see how these movies do and how people react to them and what even direction this goes because they're not saying, okay, here's like a trilogy of stories, here's episode 10. It seems like
Yeah.
they're going in the direction of just essentially what the Star Wars stories was going to be. Here's these random anthologies throughout the Star Wars universe, and maybe we'll have sequels to them someday. Maybe we'll follow them up somewhere else, but I like this direction, at least for now. Just start giving us little sprinkles of different times and places and see what sticks. And if like everyone loves the Rogue Squadron movie, not so much everything else, and I'm sure we get Rogue Squadron 2, 3, 4, and that's kind of the direction I go in. And if no one likes that, but everyone loves the Taika Waititi movie in a few years, that's probably the direction they'll start going. So I think these dates are important because they're going to set the stage of what the future of Star Wars is in the movie front.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think I would rather them focus more on events and history of Star Wars than characters. Like, I'd love a trilogy of just like, hey, here's 3 movies about the formation of the Jedi. Or you go back to Palpatine's line, I believe in Revenge of the Sith, of once more the Sith will rule the galaxy. Like, okay, what? Like, you could do an entire era of Star Wars, like 9 movies, a bunch of shows about the last time the Sith ruled the galaxy.
And I think back to Rogue One and the promotion of Rogue One, and when people were trying to theorize what the movie was going to be, and all they had in that premise was like a group of bounty hunters to hunt down the planets of the Death Star, and people were super into it. People loved that story, and
Hmm.
I remember when they announced that at Star Wars Celebration, they couldn't even get through the premise, and people were already cheering because they liked the idea, and people were more into that than, oh, here's Han Solo when he was a kid,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
you give someone like that action figure premise of like, oh, take your bounty hunter characters and they're gonna have to go find the Death Star plans. Like that's something that we all play when you're kids, and I feel like this kind of gives people a sandbox to go play out whatever story they want to play out.
Yep. All right, and I have one more. One more other piece of news. Looks like Mandalorian is going to be filming from September, so this month, through March. So probably expect Mandalorian season 3 to be in the Christmas, maybe late November Christmas slot of next year.
Makes sense to me. Give us Book of Boba Fett, and we'll take a little break. Maybe who knows?
I'm gonna say there's about a 95% chance Mandalorian appears in Book of Boba Fett.
I'm feeling confident.
And then one more other piece of news that's a little bit more sad. Tom Kane, who, if you don't know, was the voice of Yoda in the Clone Wars, and he was also the narrator of all the episodes, suffered a stroke a few months ago. And because of that, he hasn't recovered like he'd like to. So he announced today that he is officially retiring from voice acting. So just wanted to give a shout out to Tom Kane, who basically Clone Wars, which I think most fans would assume is kind of the consistent high point of the Star Wars saga. Without him, basically that wouldn't be the same. So I wanted to give him a little shout out and a little sign of respect for everything he's done for Star Wars. So
Yeah, his
he had
narration
a,
was
he
such a
had a good
fundamental
run.
part of that
Yeah.
of that series. I always remember that's like that feeling of clicking into an episode of Clone Wars and just his narration in a couple of seconds throwing you into that world. And I thought he was such a great part of it. It's something that I miss in all the other shows is his narration. It's a shame that, of course, you won't get more from him, but I hope he can. You know, he had a good run, a good life, and I hope he can recover well for himself and live a good life, knowing
Yeah.
that he
He
had
does.
such a good impact and a good career.
They are coming out with that Lego Star Wars game where he is voicing Yoda and Qui-Gon. So we will get a little touch more of his voice work. Uh,
If that
Still
game
to
ever
come.
comes out,
They didn't they just release a trailer not that long ago?
it's one like it's been stuck in COVID delays again and again and again. It's supposed to be out
Uh,
like a year ago at this point. I'm
oh
waiting.
well.
My pre-order is still there on Amazon.
I'm never gonna pre-order a game in my life. Just
I
because so
will if
many
it says
times
Star Wars on it.
I've seen so many people that get burned because it's like, oh, I pre-ordered this game and then the game comes out and I'm like, this game sucks. And like, so I saw a meme today. We're off topic. I don't give a shit. That was basically
Swearing.
like, why would you pre-order a game like they're not gonna run out of a digital copy? So
That's true. I like to pre-order so I can pre-download. You know, I can have it all ready
um,
to go. 12:01 a.m. I can play and it's all good to go.
okay, that makes sense. I'm not that big of a gamer. I was gonna get Madden, and everyone was like, "This is the worst version of Madden in like 10 years." And I'm like, "Well, guess I'm not getting Madden this year." But anyway, unless you have anything else you want to add about our Disney Plus weekly review.
No, check us out next week. We're gonna be covering more What If, so I'm excited to see. Hopefully, they can come back from
Yeah.
a bit of a low from this one.
Yeah, we'll be talking, whatever comes out in Disney Plus. I believe this week we were originally going to do a James Bond bracket, but I don't think our schedules are going to line up. So I think we'll just get whoever's available, do a little bracket preview, do a little predictions. If you're a March Madness fan, you kind of see basically it'll be like our own little selection Sunday next week on our main movie change up podcast for our James Bond month. And
Keep an eye on our Twitter and our Twitch, and I'm going to be doing a live watch of what I can only assume is the worst of the James Bond movies. One of the only ones that I have left on my list to watch throughout this entire franchise. Die Another Day, the Pierce Brosnan. I'm going to call it a masterpiece, of course, because
when
I
are
haven't
you?
seen it. I'm planning on it probably Saturday night, tomorrow night. Well, at this point, it's tonight, but keep an eye on Twitter, keep an eye on Twitch. I'll be posting on there when I'm going to be going live. It'll be sometime the next day or two. I'll be going live,
Right.
going through Die Another Day.
If you want a company, I might join you on that if you would like.
I
Just
love it.
for
I love
right,
the company.
yeah.
Someone's got to get me through
I
it.
I just recently watched it, so it'll be interesting for a quick turnaround. But yeah, I might join you on that. And without further ado, goodbye.